What I'm interested in here is talking about flexible tools for tight spaces, specifically. It's not always easy, dealing with a 90-degree angle on your ratchet is not always the best case. I mean, there's lots of options for getting into tight spaces, and that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to put the numbers to these in the bottom, so that way you guys can look them up if you're interested. Some of this stuff is very expensive. I'm a professional. That doesn't mean that I'm any better than you. It just means I do it for my job. Now, first I'm starting off with this 1/2" ratchet. Now it's SnapOn. I'll show you SnapOn. And it's wore out. Well, I mean the handle is, but the handle doesn't really do much but make your hand feel nice. And since window mechanics need their hands to feel super nice, these ratchets work just as good as a breaker bar. I have literally stood on them before to break things loose, and like they're gonna break eventually. You're gonna catch a tooth wrong, and it's gonna you'll snap a tooth in this ratchet head. Lifetime warranty. But the difference between this and a breaker bar is this has, I believe, something like 80 teeth in it, and it has a fine adjustment so you can get it right where you need it. I've worked on many vehicles that if I tried to use a breaker bar to get the belt loose, I wouldn't be getting the belt loose, and getting the ratchet out. That's something that you run into sometimes. So I recommend you get something like this, a SnapOn, Matco, Cornwell, Mac. I personally would not want to lay on and put a lot of torque on a 1/2" ratchet this large. Put on a Harbor Freight ratchet that's this size, because with this length you're talking about lots of leverage on this mechanical bits up here, and when it lets loose your hands are going whatever direction they were going before, but really fast. And you want to talk about busting your knuckles and hurting yourself, this is the way to do it. So that's why I recommend actually spending some good money on a 1/2" ratchet like this if you need to do 1/2" ratcheting like this. The next thing that I want to talk about is a very special set of long flex head reversible ratcheting wrenches like these. Now I've seen some videos on YouTube before, some guys having these, and I'm sure that they are probably the same tool. Now the tool that they were referencing was Easy Red, and I've heard of people using Easy Red long ratcheting wrenches like this, flex head, and they have this spline tooth on them that'll fit a multitude of different fasteners. But these are the real deal. Now they're expensive. I think I paid something like $350 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 of them. But they are the business. I've broken loose rusted turbo bolts with this little guy. I mean, how cute is this? It's an 8mm and a 10mm. I have bent this thing, I've had it flexed like almost U-shaped, and it's held up, and it only on occasion. Now if the bolt head is too rusty, especially on these smaller sizes, if you got rust on that bolt head and it's just enough, it's coming off. You're gonna round it out. And there's a tool I have for that in another video. But anyway, these things are not to be messed with. I've broken maybe 2 of them ever, and that's with some heavy usage. So personally, what I recommend is if you were interested in buying these and you are not a professional mechanic, what I would recommend is you get a couple of them, not the whole set, because you don't probably need the whole set. Something that you guys have probably all heard about is simple wobble extension. They're not too crazy. I mean, you get a little bit of wobble out of them. Now, you can't apply as much torque on a wobble extension as you can a regular extension. Because of this chamfer here, where it comes narrow, it'll snap right there every time when it's going to snap. But for the record, you do get some decent articulation there. Now that helps. You can get, you know, if you just can't quite get it, this will normally get it for you. So I recommend this. You should have some of these. I mean, 1 or 2 should be fine, but definitely worth investing in a high quality set of these extensions. Now, I know you can get away with cheap extensions, you can get away, but I'm telling you, it makes me nervous whenever you're putting a lot of torque on something like this and they're not high quality to start with. Because when they snap, again, you're going wherever your hand was pointed. That ratchet is gonna snap forward and bam, whatever's there, your hand just smoked it. So I would be skeptical of cheap extensions as well. You want to talk about tricks of the trade here. We're getting into the nitty gritty, buddy. These wobble sockets are very expensive. So these are SnapOn 1/4 inch chrome wobble sockets, 6 points specifically. Now these are super great for getting into spaces that you didn't think you could get into. If you were going to buy some, I would probably recommend the Cornwell set. You're going to get a better deal, and they're going to be just as high quality. Well, generally speaking, they're going to be pretty good, and you're going to have the lifetime warranty. So that's good on these because you might have to put some torque on it. Now, you can get a full, it's a universal joint socket. Very low profile. You can, with this 8mm here, you can get into some places that you didn't know you could get into. And that's pretty much the point about all these tools here. It's expanding higher tech tools to get into places that you didn't think typically you could get into, where you're hand wrenching something out. You don't want to be hand wrenching things. Typically, at least me as a professional mechanic who is worried about how long things take, I want to be using the highest tech tool I can on a fastener. I don't want to be doing it slow with a regular wrench. Ratcheting wrenches are the business. All right, now these I'm gonna lump the 3/8 and 1/4 inch ratchets together. I don't want to make a bunch of different categories for this. So these are again expensive 1/4 inch and 3/8 ratchets. So I wanted to show you the difference here in two different styles of 3/8 ratchet that swivel. This one swivels like this. Now it'll go, I don't know, probably 270 degrees. I mean, you can cut it pretty far in that way too. So it's nice, and the cool thing about this is it keeps your torque straight on. Because the pivot point is centered, you can actually put full torque on it and not have to worry about the wrench kicking up. The problem though is, if you look at the diameter, and you can see that right there, if you look at that, you don't quite have the slim line fit as you do this one. This one here, you can get into some better places, and honestly, I got used to it, so this is what I use. 1/4 inch ratchets. Again, a couple of different, well, these aren't different style per se. The ratchet head is all one solid piece, and it kind of attaches to the handle down here. But something interesting about these is this one from SnapOn locks with that, and you can turn it that way and move it freely. I don't really like that. It's decent. From Cornwell though, this one, it has detents in it, right? But they're kind of far apart. So you will, in most situations, be able to deal with these positions, but it's kind of unfortunate that you can't find an in-between. In a really tight situation, you're going to wish that you had more adjustment here. This just doesn't cut it. If you look at the angles here, I don't like that there aren't more options, but still good ratchets. But see, look at this. I think that they got robbed. Look, it says I and V. I don't know what I and V means, but one of them is on and one of them is off. If you look at SnapOn, they were ahead of the ball game. You got on and off, if you can see that. But they have actual words. I don't know whatever, man. I'm just gonna let it go. If you are in the game of torquing things, which you should be in the game of torquing things, You're going to have to torque something, and there's going to come a time that you're going to wish that you had a little flex. That little flex might be like 10 degrees, 15 maybe, makes the world of difference. Because if you hold this end here, look how much higher you just got that end. That is a big deal. Now you can ratchet this much more freely, and another thing that I've caught myself doing is in the path of something that's kind of hard to take off or just annoying to take off, you can rise above it and come back down and keep pulling straight. So you can just kind of like flow your path around an obstacle without having to, you know, take more things apart. So we're talking about getting in tight places. These are something that I can get almost anywhere with. With an extension and one of these, I can go pretty much wherever and use my impact. It's pretty insane. So here is a universal wobble, but on the end, instead of an adapter there, or instead of a 3/8 chuck right there, you have, or not a chuck, whatever. Instead of a 3/8 drive, we'll say, you have the 10mm medium deep. Now, if I were to buy these sockets again, I would just buy the medium deep, and there are a couple shallows that I do need. But because this is a top 5, I'm just showing you the medium deeps, because that's what I would use if I didn't have already, you know, all the sets. You don't have to have the whole set. If I were you, if I was a home, well, I don't know who you are, so scrap that. If I was a home gamer or a mechanic just starting out, don't buy the whole set. Do yourself a favor. If you're working on anything like I am, heavy duty diesel engines, just buy the 10, 13, 15. Start with that. See if you use them all the time. Okay. I know you're thinking, no I don't, but I have an idea. You might be looking at some of these universal sockets and saying, dude, what the heck? You know we can't afford to buy a $400 or $500 set of sockets. I don't blame you. I don't want you to. You could just buy these. Check this out. This is a universal 3/8 adapter. This adapter you can put on any extension, ratchet. You can put any socket you want on here, and it'll do almost a 90-degree turn. Now you're not going to get any torque on this, and it's going to want to cam over like that. So that's not the best thing. If you keep this relatively straight, you can make this thing fit in some pretty tight places, and these are actually better for like super tight places than some of the other things I'm going to show you here in a second. For the record, they also make them in 1/4 inch. These are impact versions. Well, one of them says do not impact, I think. Let's see here. No, just do not hold while in use. Thanks, SnapOn. Appreciate it. This is a Matco variant. I like this because it has a very smooth travel like you just saw. That is nice, but something that this is no good for is if you wanted to put this on a ratchet. The problem is this, and let's see if you can see it. That play there is not good for a ratchet, because that's going to add some real play in your ratchet that you're not going to be doing any work. Wasted energy, pretty annoying. But if you have this on a air ratchet, impact, something like that, you're going to have a good time. This guy is a SnapOn 1/2 inch adapter. For a holy cow. It also has quite a good range, but the trick here is that it only has a single pin through it. Now if you'll notice, right there, it has an awkward travel. Like it's working to roll over that pin right there in that area. And it's not super clean, and you can't rotate it all the way around like smoothly. Whereas the Matco version with the 4 teeth on it, you can. So that's one reason I like the Matco version better. But they're both good, and they both work really well. So check them out. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it, first of all. And Like, comment, subscribe. Say something nice if you would, please. Please. These tools are something that I use to make my living. These are what pay for everything that I have. So I will never recommend something to you that I think is not worth buying or isn't good. That's just something that I'm going to do, and that's just a pride thing. That's something that means a lot to me. If you feel like something I'm talking about is total nonsense, let me know in the comments below. I'll be reading them. Thanks, guys. See you later.